Welcome to another episode of Inner Mastery, where we go into the secrets within you so you can start using life to build you up rather than breaking you down. And today is a special edition. It is a book club day. We are reading still Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth, and this is the second part of chapter 3. These chapters are really dense, so each week we're kind of cutting through about 10 or so pages in this book. And today's conversation and discussion was really around the collective delusion that is causing all of the insanity in this world and how we need to take radical ownership of the reactions to others, to the world, that really it's revealing things inside of us. And if we work on our individual consciousness, right, stopping identifying with our own thoughts and emotions, starting to identify with the witness behind it all, that is actually what will stop and shift the collective dysfunction. And we can't expect others to do it. We can't point the finger. We have to do it ourselves. So if you have any questions, comments, we have the Telegram chat going. That will be linked here in the discussion. If you're listening to this on audio, please give this a 5-star review wherever you're listening. If you're on YouTube, please like it, comment on the video, and of course, subscribe to the channel. I look forward to seeing you on the other side and enjoy this conversation. Hey there, Danielle Matthews here. I'm coming to you live from Florida. Today is Monday. It is noon Eastern time, so it is book club day. And right now we are in the midst of reading Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. So if you are joining me live, let me know when you get here to join the discussion. If you want to join live, we're here every Monday, Facebook, Instagram, and then I post, of course, the recordings up on YouTube. So we are on chapter 3, the core of ego. And we're starting at the point, we read about half the chapter. These chapters are big, so they're heavy. So this part where we're starting is called The Ego is Not Personal. Hey, Tina. Hey, Charlotte. Good to see you. Glad you guys could be on here live. And as I'm reading this, I've been underlining things, but I also have just started a notes page because holy moly, there's so much here. So let's just dive in. Let's dive in because we're going to definitely run out of 30 minutes to talk about everything. So, hey, Karen, good to see you. Let me ask you this. For those of you that are here live, if you're joining the replay, you can play along when you're listening. But let me ask you this. What is it that lies at the root of all of the insanity in this world? This is what he was getting at this chapter. I thought this was sort of the essence of this part of the chapter. What is it, hey, Nancy, that is underlying, that is at the root of insanity in this world? Who knows? Or if you read the book, who remembers? I'm sure you all read and you're like, wait, what, Danielle? The ego, Tina says, yes. Okay, so what he says is, and remember, the ego is complete identity with thought and emotion. So what he's saying is that the craziness of war, of these deep-rooted generational conflicts, right? Like what's going on in Israel and Palestine, just the insanity that we're seeing manifested. We talked last week a lot about politics and just the nature of the political discussion and how emotional people get about it. This complete identity with thought and emotion is what is at the root of insanity. It is the manifestation at a mass level in human consciousness as a collective of the ego. And it's causing all sorts of crazy things. It's what's causing all the crazy issues in our own lives, right? Identifying with our thoughts and our emotions, thinking, oh, that's me. And when you do that, you get into all sorts of trouble. And same with the collective. When the collective is just operating through fear, through thoughts, through emotions, through I'm right, you're wrong, we see all the chaos that we see. So, one of the things that, let me get back to the page. So we're on page 72 for those of you, well, I don't know if it's the same in your book, but 72 in my book. He was saying, many construct a conceptual identity of other people, and they confuse the ego with the other that they're seeing as that being them. And it's very easy to then create an us versus them. And it's super interesting also because it allows your own ego to get stronger because you think, oh, well, this person, and we identify maybe an action they took or a comment that they said. It's maybe pulled even out of context, that maybe they didn't even say, but you believe that it was said about them, right? And so we construct this image of someone, and what we're constructing is an image of their ego, which isn't even them. But then our own ego goes, well, I'm better than that person. And, I'm right and they're wrong. And you're strengthening your own ego, right? What is the number one thing that strengthens your ego? Do you guys remember? The number one thing that strengthens the ego mind. Anybody? I feel like I should be like offering out money. Who can get it? All right. So the number one thing that strengthens the ego mind is being right. Every time you get that internal hit of, oh, I'm right, they're wrong, it strengthens the ego. It also strengthens separation, right? Separating from the individual. And the truth of the matter is none of us are our ego minds. I'm no more my ego than you are your ego. What we all are is a manifestation of consciousness. We're all the ocean currently manifested as a wave. And our waveform gets so indignant that, oh, I'm better than you and I'm right and you're wrong and this and that. But the truth of the matter is we're all made of the same ocean. That makes sense? We're all made of consciousness. And your thoughts are just a tiny aspect of you. Like this consciousness that I'm talking about, this ocean, you can tap into. That's your intuition. This is a part of you that has wisdom well beyond your own little thoughts. All right, but we get so distracted by the thoughts because they're so freaking loud in our own head, and we don't realize we don't have to pay attention to them. They're not us, and that's what Eckhart Tolle is getting at. And he's saying, hey, every time that you just see someone and all you see is their ego, you're not seeing their true humanity. You're not seeing the divinity beneath them. I used to have on my phone, you look at your cell phone so often because you click it to see the time or a message comes in or whatever. I used to have a message that just said, see the divine in everyone. Every time I touched my phone, it said, open your heart. And then it said, see the divine in everyone. Because I wanted to remember that no matter the energy with which someone comes at me, right? Because in business, I deal with all sorts of people. They're upset, they're angry, they're happy, whatever. It was just to remind myself, don't speak to the ego. Speak to their divinity. See the divinity. See the best possible version. See their light. See the ocean that makes up the wave. Is this making sense? If you can do that, wow, it just changes the game. You start to just have a total open heart to everybody because you're like, wow, I see you for who you are. And I see that your ego mind is taken over right now, but you don't get triggered by it. It's just a much better way to have interactions with people. Has anyone tried this? Put a 1 in the chat if you've tried this. It is if you've not, do it this week. Every interaction that you have, put a 2 in the chat if you're going to try it this week. A 1 in the chat if you haven't done it, or if you have done it. But just see that divinity in everyone. And I'm telling you, when I started watching that woman, I keep talking about her in these book clubs. But the lady that is able to sort of communicate, with animals, right? She does it through just dropping in, and everything comes from consciousness, so it makes sense, right? Intellectually, conceptually, it makes sense to be able to do it. Because of watching her and hearing she's having, this connection with everything, and she's saying everything has the same consciousness, so it's all equal. Like a mosquito is no less than a human. Which was the total for my own mind. I have a hard time killing bugs now. If I've got mosquitoes flying around me, I used to just swat them. Now I'm I should probably get some essential oil or something that just naturally repels them, so I don't have to squash them and kill them. They just know to stay away. And then we're both fine. I'm not getting bit, and they're not getting killed. When I find bugs in the house now, I used to hate roaches. They just, I would scream. Now I'm I have compassion for them. So now I trap them with a cup and I put them outside. We had these caterpillars that were just eating our azalea bushes. They munched on those things. There were hundreds of them. And I was like, I don't feel okay killing them. So we just relocated them. So we picked every caterpillar off the bush. We put it in a bucket, and then we drove and we relocated them to where it was in the middle of the forest and they could eat whatever they wanted that was not our azalea bushes, right? It's how do you live in communion, with all of these other beings of consciousness? It just has shifted me. Mice are my not compassionate friends. Yeah, so what do you do with mice, right? What could I introduce to make them go away without having to kill them? anyway, for your thought, maybe you're not to the animal kingdom yet, and it's just like you're trying to just, handle your boss or your sister or your neighbor or something. See the humanity in them. You don't have to go as far as me and like not want to kill a bug. But the other thing I thought was really interesting is he was talking about, I think it was page 74. Let me get to this. He says, the particular egoic patterns that you react to most strongly in others and misperceive as their identity tend to be the same patterns that are also in you. Talk about the world being a mirror. This is what they mean. Okay? But that you are unable or unwilling to detect them within you. In that sense, you have much to learn from your enemies. Yeah, ouch. Yes, Tina, I agree. It's like, oh. So that person that triggers you the most, who triggers you the most? You don't have to put their name in here. But just think of someone, put a 5 in the chat if you've thought of someone. Like, who triggers you the most? I have someone in my life. Who triggers you the most? When you've got your person, put a 5 in the chat. Okay? It could be a politician. It could be your aunt. It could be your neighbor. It could be your son, daughter, spouse, sister, mother, brother, like whatever. You don't need to tell me who it is. But just a 5 when you've got the person. Okay? Now that you have the person, great. I see over here. Facebook, are you with me? Did I lose you? I don't see anyone in the chat. There you all are. Okay. Maybe there's like a slight delay. So what is it in them that you find most upsetting and most disturbing? So the person you're thinking of, what is it about them that you find most upsetting or disturbing? Write it down. Or you can put it in the chat if you feel like we don't know who you're talking about. So you can put it in the chat if you want. Is it their selfishness? Is it their greed? Is it their need for power and control? Is it their insecurity? Is it their dishonesty? Is it their propensity to violence? Anything that you resent and strongly react to in another is also in you. Okay? So, whatever it is that is triggering you is either a feeling that you also have or a desire that you have, or it's something, yeah, wow, I know. It's like, ooh, smack in the face, right? I love that it's like the mirror just got held up. So anything you're reacting to is within you. I had my teacher tell me, because there's a person in my life that like constantly it triggers me. And I'm like, well, how do I navigate this? And I was telling her about a dynamic that we had and like an explosive, situation that had occurred. And my teacher said to me, the only reason that comment had any teeth is because there's a piece of that still in you. There's a piece of you that believes that. And so when she said it to you, it hit and you reacted because there's some level of either your own doubt or something that is oscillating with you, or the need to have the approval of this or whatever. There's something in you that it registered with, because they could have said the same thing to anybody else. Right, I got triggered. Yeah, it's because the thing in you got triggered. It's because it's in you. I really didn't like this when I learned this. I know, Charlotte. It's like humbling to go, oh, shoot, it's me. And that's the thing. I think societally, it has become like okay to be the victim and like it's justified and, I'm so sorry for you and you are the victim and that person's the problem and we need to fix that group of people or that person, or they shouldn't be allowed to say this, and yes, we should censor the internet, and this shouldn't be allowed to be said, and blah, blah, blah. The truth of the matter, when you come down to spiritual teachings, to what he's teaching, to what I teach in my own program, to what I've learned from my teachers, it's radical ownership. It is you, and it's a problem within you. The trigger is your teacher. Period. End of sentence. So if you are triggered by something, you should actually be expressing gratitude to that person, situation, etc., because they have revealed that there is something within you that is not quite settled. There is something in you, in the tradition that I study, they call it a samskara, like a block of emotion, right? A grunty, that is getting triggered. And that's like a whole nother conversation. And if you're interested, we can have it. But that's what's happening. So yeah, you don't like learning it because you're like, oh, I can't blame out there. It's in here. It's something in here. They just created the weather pattern. Like, it's easy to blame because it's like, well, I was fine until they did this. Yes, they created the weather pattern for the seed to grow, but the seed was in there. You know, it's like, I've got a garden out there and I've planted some kale seeds and I've planted some, peppers and whatever. I planted a lot. I now need the right weather for it to grow. If the right weather doesn't happen, that seed's never going to grow. So you could have this seed of this thing in you, and if the right weather doesn't come through, it's never going to get triggered. But it's probably actually, that seed is like an energy block. It's actually a low vibration. And so it's very good that it's getting triggered. It's like fantastic that the right weather pattern, the person, the dynamics, whatever, the comment was said so that you could get a trigger, because now you know that that's in you. Does that make sense? So you should actually be grateful. It's hard to jump there. I understand, because, society says, no, you're the victim and that's okay. No. I have no tolerance for that. It's something within you that's needing to get explored to deal with. All right. Yes. And also remember, this is the other thing, Charlotte, that might help, is he says, remember that isn't them. The comment, the statement, the whatever, that's not even them. That's their ego. And so it's now their ego is getting your ego triggered, and it's like the illusions are having a fight, and none of it's true. And if you can just come back to the fact that, well, I'm a manifestation of the divine consciousness, like, I'm not any of this baloney that my mind is saying. The whole thing just loses its charge. And that's actually what, he says in this war is a mindset. He goes, look, we go to war, like the war on drugs, the war on poverty, or the war on blah, blah, blah. When you go to war with something, and you go to war with an unconsciousness, right? It's the ego. It will draw you in, and you will become more unconscious for fighting it. And he doesn't talk about this, but, in my practice and what I study and teach is, look, in order to deal with it, you need to withdraw attention. So if something is bad, you don't give it attention. You also don't try to stop it. You just completely ignore it, and it loses its power. It's like a kid having a temper tantrum. You obviously aren't going to give it what it wants, because that reinforces the behavior. You're obviously not going to tell them to stop crying, because that's not going to help. You just hold space. You just don't give it energy. It's just nothing. You just withdraw from it. You're not giving it negative energy, telling it to stop. You're not giving it positive energy, giving him what he wants. You are literally just holding the space. It's called pratyahara. It's the withdrawal of energy. And it's everything. Because what you fight, you strengthen, right? Page 75, he says, whatever you fight, you strengthen, and what you resist persists. Yeah, it's a shock. Exactly. Charlotte was saying, this is a shock when I learned this. It's a huge shock. Because we think, oh, we got to fight for what's right. And our ego does too. But remember, that's how our ego grows. And of course it wants to, because that's how it has something solid to stand on. Well, I need to fix this. I need to do that. Blah, 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 blah. No. It's just the withdrawal of attention. You can have a temper tantrum and you can scream, but I'm just going to sit here and hold space. Like, I'm not giving into it. I'm not trying to stop it. It's just that energy needs to rage through, say, that toddler. And once it's done, it's done. That's it. And then everything's fine. So that's how it goes. What you resist persists. Super interesting, right? If you are resisting that they are angry and screaming and you're like, stop it, get together, no one else is yelling, what are you doing? It's going to persist. You're putting fuel on the fire. Yeah, everyone should learn this. I don't know why it's not taught, but here we are, and we're learning now. Okay, so huge, absolutely huge. What was something else I wanted to say? Oh, so what do you do? On page 76, he kind of gives us back to like, all right, so what do we do? He says, recognize the ego for what it is, a collective dysfunction, the insanity of the human mind. And when you recognize it for what it is, you no longer misperceive it as somebody's identity. And you'll stop being triggered. Once you just go, gosh, this isn't even them. Right? It's just their own ego doing its thing. They don't even know. They're unconscious, right? What did Jesus say? Forgive them, Father, for they do not know. They're just unconscious. And so you can only have compassion. It's like the animals have for us. It's like these humans are killing their own environment, and like all you can do is have compassion because they don't even know that their minds are the problem. They're sick and they don't even know they're sick. All you can do is have compassion. That's it. So, on page 77, he asked some interesting questions, and I want to just put this here for you guys. He says, can you feel that there is something in you that is at war? Something that feels threatened and wants to survive at all cost, that needs the drama in order to assert its identity as the victorious character within that theatrical production. Can you feel there is something in you that would rather be right than be at peace? I read that and I went, wow. Yeah, right? And talk about politics, right? We were talking about is there a side of you when you get into a political discussion, you can watch it because some people get real heated and passionate. And it's like this person would rather assert that they were right and win this argument, and who's to really say what's better? I don't know. There's a divine plan out there, right? I don't know who's better to be in office. I have my own, ego has its desires, and whatever, but I don't actually know. So, but people get so passionate. They get so entrenched in it, right? And it's like they would rather argue and prove themselves right and create stress in their body than be at peace. It is heavy. It is heavy. And it's very real. And it's playing out all the time in every conversation, every dynamic. I mean, it's wild. And you're in a world filled with it. It knocks you over. It'll knock you back. You're like, whoa. It's a lot. But keep bringing awareness to it, right? Catch yourself. This is not about pointing at other people and going, this is your ego and you need to stop. No. This is not a sword. This is a mirror. This is you reflect on you. This is you figure out where you're doing this, where you're trying to be right that rather than being at peace. Politics is crazy making. It is. It will drive you crazy because half of it depends on where's somebody getting news from and what's this and what's that and what's real and what's not. I mean, it's nutty town these days. But yeah, the ultimate purpose. All right. So page 78, he gets to the ultimate purpose of life. The ultimate purpose of human existence, which is to say your purpose, is to bring that power into this world. The awareness is the power that's concealed within the present moment. So the purpose of our life, he says, is to bring consciousness, bring the witnessing energy to every moment. Because when you're present and you are as witness, that power of the present moment's awareness, ego can't live in that. Ego cannot live in that awareness. And so it will drop away. And that's what we're meant to do. If you want to get rid of the collective crazy, you have to get rid of the individual crazy first. And so don't point at somebody else. It's, what you point, what do they say? 3 fingers point back at you. That's the truth of it. Look at you, look in the mirror, and fix yourself. Only presence can undo the past in you and thus transform your state of consciousness. It does it through just shining the light of awareness. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. You do not have to fight the darkness. You do not have to fight your ego. You just put awareness on it and you go, that's not me. And you withdraw attention from it, just like you would the screaming toddler. And you just rest back in the presence. That's it. That's how it works. All right? When I know myself as that, whatever happens in my life is no longer of absolute, but only of relative importance. I honor it, but it loses its absolute seriousness and its heaviness. So Charlotte, you put heavy here in the chat, right? When you recognize that you are the ocean and not the wave, all of a sudden, all the stuff that happens in this world loses its charge because you realize it's almost like going from, say, an actor playing a role in a movie and totally forgetting that they're an actor. Just totally believing that they are that role. And they're just totally in. And they're like, whatever highs the character's having, they're having. Whatever lows they're having, they're having. And they're just totally in the role. And the role's really intense. And then someone reminds them, hey, this isn't you. This is just a game. This is for show. This is so you could experience the range of emotions, so you could just play. You're acting. It's not you. Come back out. Remember, this is who you are. That's what he's saying. He's saying the moment you realize, whoa, I am just a wave. I'm here impermanently. I'm going back into the ocean. I am meant to be here to experience, to enjoy. It's not me, right? There is something beyond it. Then everything loses its heaviness, right? All the intensity, you kind of are able to step back and go, oh, but it's okay, right? I mean, I was just experiencing this when you lose somebody. You know, a really good friend of mine that I've known for like a decade, she's been like an aunt to me, passed away about a month ago. Man, time flies. And I was just with her brother yesterday. We were talking about it, and it's like, you know, at some point you just realize, like, yeah, it's shocking news. And so your ego goes, no, I didn't want them to go. I want them to be here, right? But at some point you just realize, like, there's a bigger game at play, you know? Like, her soul has moved on to the next phase. It was time to transition. Who am I to say anything about that timing, right? I don't know. And you just, like, the heaviness releases. It's remarkable. It really is remarkable. He says, you know, it's the seriousness and the heaviness of anything. It has importance, but the relative importance is less. Does this make sense? High five me, 5 in the chat if this is making sense, because this is everything. When you can rest back as that, this is why in my Inner Management Mastery, I teach people Yoga Nidra. I teach people a practice, a tool that allows them to get beyond their thoughts and rest back as your true nature. And when you're resting back as your true nature, you see that all of the chitter chatter isn't as important. It's like you're dispassionately watching the movie again. You're not so absorbed with the drama. It's like the actor going, oh yeah, this is my real life. That's a stage. Does this make sense? What page am I on? I'm on page 79, Tina. That was on page 79, right before all structures are unstable. That's where I was reading that. 79 in my book. I don't know. Okay. Where to now? Unstable structures. So basically, you know, this section was just talking about everything is, you know, he talked about the ego as there's contents, right? Like the contents of the container and just the structure of the ego. It has to identify with contents or else it dissolves, right? It doesn't exist. And he's saying that structure is inherently unstable and that all structures are inherently unstable, right? They're all going to fall. And so if you think about it, that structure is unstable because if there are no contents, the ego has nothing to coalesce around, like it has nothing to form around. And so therefore it's unstable. And so the ego tries to create more and more content so it can get more and more of a hold. Okay. And what he kind of says is, look, this is why we see, you know, these aspects where we have these desires to want to stand out. We have these desires to feel special. We have these desires to be in control, to get power, to get attention, to get more. You know, he talks about that song, right? I can't get no satisfaction. And he's like, that's an ego song, right? Because it's like there's this drive and we all feel it and we all have it of like, no, I just need this. Now I need this. Now I need that. Now I need that. What about this? Da 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 da. And he's saying all of this, though, is actually rooted in fear. The fear of being a nobody, the fear of not having an existence, right? Because if there's no contents, the ego has nothing to grasp to, and so it doesn't exist. And the fear of death, because the ego only exists when we have wave, right? When the wave goes back into the ocean, the ego goes bye-bye. So it's a song of the ego. Yeah, it is truly a song of the ego. But this is it. He says, why fear? Because the ego arises by identification with form. And deep down, it knows that no forms are permanent, that they are all fleeting. So there is always a sense of insecurity around the ego. That's that thing inside of you that constantly has insecurity. Even if on the outside it appears confident. It's always there. Always there. So he says, the recognition of the impermanence of all forms awakens you to the dimension of the formless within yourself, that which is beyond death. Jesus called it the eternal life. Once you begin to recognize that it's all impermanent, that nothing's here forever, you know, that you will start to awaken to this. I was talking yesterday. It's like we were talking about all the things that my friends, like all the stuff she left behind, boxes of stuff, animals, a home, like a business, like all of this stuff. And it's like, man, at the end of the day, none of it really matters. You don't take it with you. It's gone. It's just left behind, right? So what significance did it even have in your life? Did you let it get you upset? And if you are letting these things get you upset, it's crazy town. And you just recognize that's my ego trying to just have contents to hold on to, and have value. And it's just like, that's no way to happiness. Okay. It's no way to live. If you want to live, all of a sudden, once you realize that form is temporary, that structures are unstable, that this too shall pass, you realize there's something that's there always, the formless, right? The silence within which sound exists. The silence is always there. We just make a sound and here it is, seems to take over, but it's the silence that's allowing it to be there. It's the formless that's allowing for form. It's the ocean that allows for the wave. And that's your true self. And it's always there. Like we are in an ocean of love. Like everything is happening in this space of just unconditional love, but we forget about it. Just like we forget that like the biggest thing in the room is the space. It's the air. Anyway, yeah. So we are at time. And I think, the rest of it wasn't like too important to kind of touch on. It was talking about fame and how people get, it's just the ego that gets tied up in name dropping and gossiping and being famous. And it's just a mess. Like our identities, like who we think either one of these politicians are, like speaking about whatever you think about Kamala Harris and whatever you think about Donald Trump, like the truth of the matter is we don't know them. It's some projection of, the ego, aspect like coming through each of them and us reacting to them. It's just like, it's not even who they are. So it's just wild. It's just wild. I love what Albert Einstein said. He said, in fact, there's a grotesque contradiction between what people consider to be my achievements and abilities and the reality of who I am and what I am capable of. Like people painted a picture of him and he was like, that's not even me. Like he stayed humble and didn't identify with the ego inside of himself. So I thought that was an interesting point. All right. The next chapter is a monster. This thing is like 40 pages long. I don't think we're getting through it in 2 goes. So I was looking, I think that the next chapter, role-playing, the many faces of the ego, chapter 4, what I'm thinking is we will stop at page 96. Okay, so in my book, it's from 85 to 96, and we'll stop right before parenthood, role, or function. Okay, we'll stop right before that. And that'll be 10 pages, 10-ish pages, 11 pages. And I think that seems to be like enough for a half-hour discussion. So I'll put it in the Telegram chat. If you're not in the Telegram chat, let me know, and we'll get you in there. It's just where I put stuff. If you have any comments or thoughts or whatever, please use that chat space. It's a chance for us to connect around these things. I'm happy to talk through anything else. So thank you for kicking off the week with a great conversation. Be sure you share this to your own page. Tag somebody in it. Invite them to book club. Guys, this world is going to change the more and more we change and shift. So let's get to it. Lots of love to all of you, and I will see you next week.